Loft. I'm glad you're here this morning with us. I want to wish you all a happy Father's Day. I want to wish my father, who hopefully is watching, a happy Father's Day, and my stepfather, Mark, happy Father's Day. And I want to wish my husband his very first Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, love. Yes. He's doing like this. Well, let's go ahead and jump right in. We are talking about Sabbath rest today. My mother tells stories about me when I was a little child about how I would play. I would go and go and go and play and play and play until I would just fall down and sleep wherever I landed. Do you know little ones who go like this? There's a lot of energy in there. But this pattern, unfortunately, followed me into adolescence, in where I would go from activity to activity in school, to extracurricular, to dance lessons, to choir, and eventually I would get a sore throat or a fever that would force me into bed for a few days to rest. And it wasn't until adulthood that I realized I don't have to live like that, right? Maybe you have a pattern like this ingrained into you as well. Maybe it was because of necessity. You, as a young teen or an older teen, were required to help put food on the table for your family, and so hard work comes to you naturally. Maybe it's because this type of behavior was how you gained love and respect in your family. But maybe it's just that you took a big old gulp of this American air that we all seem to be breathing, and we learned to continue to work ourselves to the bone, and all in the name of hard work and bootstraps kind of mentality. Regardless of where you got it from, chances are that you haven't had an opportunity to take a Sabbath in a long time, a full 24 hours day of rest. Maybe you've never taken a full 24 hours day of rest. You know, let's be honest, we live in the woodlands, y'all. We're some hardworking folks, right? We are very successful, very busy, very scheduled, and we kind of wear this overachiever badge with honor. And I wear it sometimes. I'm an overachiever. Doesn't that sound good? But it's not necessarily the way of life that God is calling us into. When we live this lifestyle, we go home empty after a hard day's work, feeling stressed and irritated, not able to see the plight of our children or hear the concerns of our spouse. We're not able to connect with loved ones and receive love ourselves. And we lay our heads down on the pillow at night with tomorrow's to-dos weighing over our heads, or we're so tightly wound from the day before that sleep may never come. And some version of this plays out, day in and day out, with no change in pace, no rest, no avail. Even on the weekends, we pack our days full, right? They might be fun activities, but it's very scheduled. And yes, I realize that some of you struggled to get here this morning because it is stressful. It's just another thing on the to-do list. So like I said, it wasn't until early adulthood that I got an opportunity to step back and evaluate my life and lean into these Sabbath rhythms that God teaches us about in His Word. I had some people around me, some spiritual giants, and a community who supported me in taking a Sabbath. I hope that we as Lofters become a community that support one another in taking a Sabbath rest. And my invitation to you this morning is to take a deep breath, settle into your chair, and maybe get in touch with a deep longing to rest that you have put aside for a long time. We first see Sabbath show up in Genesis at the beginning of time. Do you know who the first character in the Bible to rest is? It's God. Yeah, it's God. God creates all the heavens and the earth and all that inhabits it, and He rests on the seventh day. right? Like our creation narrative as Christians, we don't say, oh, everything was created in 6 days. No, God created everything in 7 days, and it was that 7th day which creation was completed on. He rested. God chooses to stop. He chooses to rest, and that 7th day is extremely significant to the Christian life. Sabbath can simply be translated as stop. One author I read calls it a cease and desist. So I'm serving you with the cease and desist notice. God stops. What does this tell us about God? Well, we know that everything God does is holy. God cannot act outside of his holy character. So this must mean that stopping is holy. Rest is holy. God shows restraint. He rests from all that he has the power to do for an entire day. Let me tell you, restraint is not weakness. It's the opposite. It's holy. We were created in God's image, and because he rests, we were created to rest. Later, we see God call his people into this holy rhythm. You might remember the story. He frees them from slavery in Egypt, which was a 7-day-a-week brick-making gig, oppressive, tyrannical from Pharaoh through Moses. And he takes them out into the desert, and he brings them into a new way of life, which they complain about, okay? And when you start to take on Sabbath rhythms, you might complain about it too, because it's hard to be still. If you've been going for a long time, it's hard to pump the brakes and stop. But the Israelites are in the desert, and God provides for their needs just what they need every day. The manna from the heaven comes, and they harvest it, and they're able to eat each day. But on the 6th day, he provides 2 days worth of food so that they can rest on the 7th day. They can rest in being provided for. And while they're in the desert, they receive a whole ton more living laws to live by, but they also receive the 10 Commandments, the top 10, right? Let's take a look at the 10 Commandments. This is how they're listed in Exodus, this order. And if you notice, the first 3 have to do with our relationship to God, right? Don't worship other idols. God is your only God. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. The 4th is the Sabbath. And then the last ones there have to do with our relationship to one another. So honor your father and mother. Don't steal. Don't kill. Don't lie. Things like that. So the first ones are about God. The last ones are about humanity. The 4th one is an all-inclusive bridge between God and humanity. The 4th commandment connects us to God. And if you walk out onto that bridge of rest, God will meet you there. This is what God is calling us into. Psalm 23 illustrates beautifully this type of rest that we can experience on the bridge of Sabbath. Psalm 23, many of you might know commonly as a funeral text. And it is a beautiful funeral text because it has implications. It describes the eternal rest for the eternal life. But it also has implications for us in the here and the now and the rest that we can experience on the Sabbath. Listen to these words of the psalmist. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Let's dig into this a bit. In this psalm, we see several different types of rest. Each is related to one another, and when we can rest both all of them together, spiritual, physically, intellectually, and emotionally, we can receive real rest. But let's take a look at each one. So the first one we see is spiritual rest. We can experience spiritual rest when we can trust that we are provided for. Many of us have unfortunately bought into this kind of half-stepping Christianity where we trust on one foot, we trust that God is going to provide for our needs. But on this foot, we're hustling all day long to make sure that our wants are taken care of. But I have a feeling that if we stepped onto the bridge of Sabbath and met God out there, we'd have a chance to settle. We'd have a chance to see that God is providing all the things that we need, and our needs and wants may not be so different after all. And the wants that aren't so important, we might be willing to release and relinquish. And we might be willing to let joy and gratitude bubble up, and we might be able to see and notice the ways God is providing for us. Look at the first line in the psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Matthew chapter 7 tells us that our Father in heaven is good, and just as a good father would not give his son a snake or a stone or a scorpion, so our Father in heaven will give us better things than our earthly fathers could ever give us. This morning, we can find spiritual rest in God's provision. If you dare to step into a Sabbath rhythm, you're daring to feel this spiritual rest. Physical rest is described also in this psalm. Listen to the luxury that the psalmist talks about. Still waters, green pastures. Now, if you were the original reader of this text, you would have lived in Israel, the Holy Lands, which has a lot of desert in it. And if you find a patch of green grass, you're going to lay down in it. It's going to be so luxurious. And I've been watching all of my friends on Facebook who are like in the Holy Lands. Boy, you know you're deep in the Christian scene when like 8 of your Facebook friends are in the Holy Lands with different tour groups. Is that happening to anyone? Just me? Is that hashtag pastor life? I don't know. I'm not jealous. It's fine. They're finding their still waters and green pastures. There, the Lord provides them here too. But listen to this luxury. Still waters, green pastures. He prepares a feast for me. He anoints me with oil. My cup overflows. When we cast off our fast-paced and overly busy lifestyles, we can stop for a day and reflect on these good things, the luxury that we sit in, the physical safety that we have, the loved ones around us. We can physically rest and let joy and gratitude surface and turn them back to the Lord as an offering, as a celebration. The Sabbath is a celebration day. Intellectual rest comes when we step onto this bridge of Sabbath as well. Intellectual rest reminds us of who we are and whose we are. So when we remove ourselves from the everyday mental challenges that we have, God can allow us to have our minds renewed. We allow God to renew our minds. There's a verse in Romans 12:2, and Paul writes, "Therefore, be transformed by the renewing of your minds." Y'all, we can't renew our minds on our own. It's not like, okay, I'm going to schedule from 12 to 1, I'm going to renew my mind, and then from 1 to 2, I'm going to do laundry. And, no, you're not going to just sit there and like, oh, I'm renewing my mind. That's weird, okay? We got to step into the presence of the Lord and allow him to renew our minds. We can be intellectually restored. We can rest. But we have to dare to walk out onto this bridge. Emotional rest is exhibited here in the psalm as well. The psalmist writes, "I fear no evil, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." And also, you prepare a table, a banquet for me in the presence of my enemies. Emotional rest can come to us regardless of the season we're in and regardless of the presence of our enemies. God is still going to provide. He's still going to be present for us. Now, for some of us, it won't take us long to think about a person who we might consider an enemy or an organization that we're butting heads with or something. I call those external enemies. It's always easier to kind of look out and find our external enemies. But many of us, if not all of us, have internal enemies as well. Perhaps you battle with the enemy of stress, pressure to perform and succeed, pressure to make sure everyone is happy, an inner need to be in control and to manage all of your family's relationships. That's an internal enemy. Maybe you battle with worry that overwhelms you to the point of physical pain. Maybe it's fear of failure, self-doubt, loneliness. You get the idea. On the day of rest, God will prepare a feast for us. As we walk out onto the bridge of Sabbath, we can set those things on the shelf just for a day and meet God. It'll take time to find these rhythms. It will take time to feel this type of rest. Remember, God took his people into the wilderness for 40 years. I hope it doesn't take you 40 years to find your Sabbath rhythm. You can start today, y'all. Don't wait 40 years. But he took them away from their lives and brought them into a new lifestyle. And so I pray that as you begin this journey, you'll be patient with yourself and the people around you. You'll be gentle. It's an unforced rhythm of grace. And one day before you know it, your body and soul will ache for the seventh day. I pray you get there. And let me say this, your seventh day doesn't have to be Sunday. It's not my Sabbath. I'm working today. Did y'all know that? I just do this in my spare time. No, my Sabbath is Monday. So if you ever send me an email on Friday afternoon, probably not going to hear from me until Tuesday, right? It's my Sabbath on Monday. So why do we resist such deep rest? If this lifestyle is the way we were created to live and it's so good, why do we resist it? Well, I think maybe some of us find our worth in what we are able to produce, or what we're able to do. It makes us good humans, productive members of society. Maybe we don't know how to rest. Maybe we were never taught how to rest or encouraged. It wasn't modeled for us. Maybe we didn't have the opportunity to ever rest. This is a very privileged type of concept to be talking about, right? Maybe we don't believe we deserve to rest, right? Everyone else's needs are more important. Maybe you're a full-time caretaker of someone and you've never asked for a day off or asked for help so you can take a shift off. Maybe you committed to support the family business long ago and that is a 24/7 type of job. All efforts and energy go toward that. Maybe we don't believe we deserve to rest. Maybe our deepest longing to rest in the presence of the Lord got twisted when what we actually think we need is not rest, but it's to be in control of our lives. Maybe we need to stop managing everyone's happiness or successfulness, stop working to make everyone get along, stop trying to orchestrate the best outcome for the day or the week. Please don't plan the heck out of your Sabbath. Sabbath is not about the to-dos. It's not about producing something. It's about being. It's about gentleness. It's about celebration and joy. And I think that loneliness keeps us from being able to rest. I think when we feel very disconnected from people and from God, loneliness becomes a very important taskmaster in our lives, always keeping us around other people or semi-connected, like on our Facebook or on our, just scrolling, checking out. Loneliness keeps us scrambling to try to feel better, or it isolates us, but it keeps us from resting. So what does it take to cultivate a Sabbath rhythm? How exactly does one Sabbath? Marva Dawn, an author who has written extensively on Sabbath, she talks about it in terms of courage. To cultivate Sabbath practices, it first takes courage. It takes courage to serve God in all that we do and to keep his commandments. It takes courage to go against the waves of this world and resist the urge to constantly be doing and going and producing and consuming. What will people think if I take a day off? Won't I have to fight my kids tooth and nail to change up our weekend rhythm? Won't I miss out on important things? Won't others get ahead? My boss won't understand, and that comes with a whole nother load of implications. Luckily, my boss understands Sabbath, and my real boss invented the Sabbath. That's a bad joke, bad Christian joke. The 9:30 loved it. The coffee's wearing off. But anyway, it's hard. It's hard. It takes courage to change your pace of life. It takes courage to be still and to be present with what might bubble up within you and to deal with it honestly. That kept me from not being able to take a Sabbath for a long time. There was a lot of ugly in here, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and so I stayed real busy. It takes courage to change the script. It takes courage to say to your household, I need to slow down. I need to change our pace of life. I'm tired. In fact, y'all, the words I'm tired doesn't mean I'm weak. In fact, when I hear someone say I'm tired, I hear them saying I'm strong enough and wise enough to know my limitations and to speak them out loud and to live into those means. Living within your limits is a strong choice. It's a very strong choice. Cultivating a Sabbath rhythm will also take a willingness to experiment, to be creative, and to be flexible. Many of us have never asked, what is work, right? Sabbath is about not doing work. So just find out what work is and don't do that, okay? It's kind of simple. That's a very simple way of interpreting this Sabbath commandment. But really, what is work and don't do that? And it might change in different seasons. What brings you life? Many of us haven't asked, what's fun? How do I play? We've never played as a family. We've never just had fun. It's always been scheduled. So it's going to take some experimenting, and it's going to take some creativity. My dad, for example, on his weekends, he just likes to putter around the house. And he gently kind of chips away at a to-do list, but it's not forced. And when he wants to, he just comes inside and watches golf, falls asleep. He's watching golf. He's falling asleep, right? He's taking a nap, okay? Now, I did not just give all of you permission to just fall asleep to golf, okay? Sometimes that's a point of contention in a marriage, so pay attention to that. But this may be a Sabbath rhythm for some. The point is that it's unforced. It's an unforced rhythm of grace. There are no have-tos and to-dos on the Sabbath. You can change midday and say, hey, let's go to the lake, or whatever. And those of you with small children, you may just be scoffing and giggling at me this whole sermon, because small children have different rhythms than big children, right? So it's not about controlling things and making sure we rest. It's just about seeing what is more gentle for us as a family today. And sometimes that looks like saying to your spouse, like, hey, I need a 2-hour nap tomorrow after church. How can we make that happen? Or it looks like maybe getting a sitter or something, but you have to be able to state your needs. You have to be able to get in touch with what you need, and then be able to state it. And that's my last point. Cultivating a Sabbath rhythm requires you to be able to state your needs. A healthy family unit, in a healthy family unit, people get to state their needs and have them heard and received. It doesn't mean they're demands. It doesn't mean one person's needs are more important than the other, but it means we talk about it. We have a conversation. So carving out the Sabbath as a family requires communication, and it requires a little preparation. Maybe if your Sunday is your Sabbath, maybe Saturday night's dinner, you sit down and talk about, hey, what's tomorrow going to look like for you and you and you? You know, you kind of pump the brakes Saturday night, get ready to stop, full stop on Sunday. Please do not add Sabbath to your to-do list. Please don't. That's not the point. On the Sabbath, the to-do list goes on the shelf. And it might talk to you for a few months, right? That to-do list might talk to you. But you'll get used to it. You'll get used to setting that aside. And you'll see the more you do it, the more you can trust that, oh, the to-do list, I'll take care of that tomorrow. And you really will, because you'll be restored and rejuvenated. You will be refreshed. So, in closing, I hope that you're feeling inspired to rest and not condemned, right? Like at Loft, we don't preach in a condemning way. That's not our intention. We are not interested in evaluating all of your lives and then telling you how to live better, okay? That's not my job. I want you to feel invited to rest. I want to give you permission to rest, to change it up, to enter this commandment from God that is gentle and is sweet. You were made to do this. You were designed to live in this rhythm. Maybe today, try an afternoon nap, a leisurely stroll around the lake, if it ever gets cool outside. I don't know. Take a bike ride, a picnic to the park, and as you have dinner, reflect on the joy and the gratitude that surfaced. Or reflect on the hard things that surfaced. Some of us are in a season of grieving or a dark valley, and that's okay, and that's going to surface on the Sabbath. Maybe grieving needs to be a part of your rhythm, but it will bring rest to you, it will restore you. Remember that rest is holy. The fruit of the Sabbath is joy and gratitude. It points us back to our Creator. Walk out onto the bridge. That is the fourth commandment, and God will meet you there. Now, I want to close a little bit differently. In the place of a prayer, I want to offer you a pastoral blessing. So if you're willing, you can close your eyes or open your hands or just stare at me. But if you're willing, receive this pastoral blessing to rest. Lord, I pray that you would bless these folks here. Loft, be blessed to rest. I give you permission to state your needs. Be blessed to let your joy and your gratitude and your grief and all that you are bubble up. Be blessed to dare to walk out onto the bridge. May the Lord be your shepherd. May he lead you to green pastures and beside still waters. May the Lord restore your soul. May he lead you on right paths, even if you're walking through a dark valley. May you fear no evil, and may you find comfort from your shepherd. May you feast at the table, at the banquet, even if your enemies are present. May your head be anointed with oil and your cup overflow. May goodness and mercy follow you all the days of your life, and may you dwell in the house of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Loft bless you. Walk out onto the bridge. Amen.